Hi everyone, this is video 3, lesson 2 in the glacial geomorphology unit plan that I've put together. If this is the first video you're watching, go back and watch the intro video and then the first lesson video, otherwise this one will probably not make any sense. But for this second lesson, building off of what we've already done, this is going to be another initial engagement activity, but then another opportunity for you as the teacher to assess prior knowledge. This lesson deals primarily with the water cycle, um, which I'll kind of explain how that ties into what we're doing. If you think about our big underlying unit question of how does the geologic setting of the Iowa Great Lakes impact the way water transmits through it and therefore contaminants, they need to know a little bit about the water cycle, or you need to figure out what they know about the water cycle so you can teach them about it in order to have that make sense. So you've already done the virtual tour of glacial features, which is going to explain the geologic setting. So with that lesson, you went and they got to see the features first. Then, based on what they showed in their formative assessments, you then, as the teacher, needed to come up with another lesson or presentation for them on how to build on their knowledge based on what they did and didn't know. So this is kind of taking into account that that's already happened. I would definitely recommend doing that first and then doing this lesson. So as far as the unit's actually concerned, this is probably a day 5, possibly even day 6 lesson that you're going to be getting into. So with that, let's just go ahead, open it up, take a look. So here's the document that I put together for it. Water cycle introduction engagement. So I already kind of explained section 1. Section 2, the objective is to assess students' prior knowledge. That's what you're trying to get at with this one, because you want to figure out what they do and don't know, so you can then build on that in another follow-on lesson similar to the one you did with the glacial features. Any NGSS you want to take a look at, it's in the Annex A and the big unit plan, mostly for high school, but you could do this for middle schooler as well. As far as background info is concerned, specifically for you as the teacher, make sure you refamiliarize yourself with the water cycle with a special emphasis on groundwater. That's going to be huge for how we continue into the rest of this unit. If you're a little rusty on it, this right here, this link is a link to download a PDF to a book, the Iowa Groundwater Basics from the Iowa DNR in 2003. This is a great read. It's quick, it's easy, it's very relevant to the state, and it's free. You can get hard copies of it, but this is a free one right here. This is the link to the PDF, and then I'm also going to be including a copy of the PDF in the big package that has all the unit plan and all the other resources together. Read through that, brush up on that. It's mostly going to be on groundwater, the reading is, but in the first chapter they talk about just general water cycle because, groundwater is a big part of that. So that'll give you some decent background knowledge for this lesson. As far as the materials you need for it, I recommend either having large whiteboards and whiteboard markers or butcher block paper and markers and colored pencils. Because they make it big, they're easy. Since students are going to be working in groups, you can fit a lot of people around it, have them all working together, and it works pretty well. As far as pre-assessment is concerned, this lesson is kind of another pre-assessment of prior knowledge of a different type. So there really isn't one for it because this is a pre-assessment. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be giving out the whiteboards or the butcher block and the markers, and you're going to ask students what the water cycle is and how does it work. Their job is to then make a model. The way I probably envision students making the model is they're going to draw something that's pretty similar to what you're going to see in the Iowa Groundwater Basics book. But kids will surprise you. They could draw a model a variety of different ways. They could write up a model. But I just imagine they're going to draw something similar to what you saw in the book. What you need to be really looking for is what they fail to include, especially groundwater. You're really looking for that because it's going to play a huge role as we get into this unit more and more. With this introduction, they'll have students, if they have questions, write them down, present them to the group. Them coming up with their own questions is only going to help shape this lesson even more. So make sure that they're doing that. Tell them that they have free reign to do that and that you'll bring it up as a class when we discuss. As far as the investigation itself, divide the students into groups and have them draw the model. Once they've completed their first model, just have them do a general model. Once they've completed that, have them refine it for their specific community. So if you live in the Iowa Great Lakes, have them be like, it rained and then the water went from my farm into this drainage ditch, which eventually ran to West Okoboji, or if they live in a house, it ran off my backyard and into a storm drain, which then went to Lake Okoboji or something like that. If you're not in the Iowa Great Lakes region, have them make it for their own local area. That's going to create more investment. It's going to make them have to pay more attention to detail in their own area and start establishing more of that relevance. So that's the first refining I envision them doing. As far as negotiations concerned, since they're doing this in groups, they're talking together, they're working together, then have everybody come together as a class once you think they've got it. One thing to do, though, is walk around in between the groups and ask them more questions. So if they only have 3 details, like it rains, that's evaporation, and then it rolls down into the ocean, and then I misspoke. Water rains, it's precipitation, then it rolls down slope towards the ocean, and then it evaporates. If they only have those settings, ask them more questions to get them to add more detail on it. The more detail they have, the better, because it's going to give you a better assessment of what they know. And so with that, keep asking them questions. Once you're kind of satisfied that people are getting to where you would like them to be, have everybody come together as a group and discuss it. And compare their water cycles. See what every group has together. Maybe all of them are going to have precipitation, but not everybody has transpiration from plants and stuff like that. Make kind of a big class copy, and then ask students what their questions are and make like a class list of those as well, because that's, like I said, going to help you reshape your lessons that you're going to be doing later. Another good question I think you should ask is, ask students how water can be contaminated. You can either do this once they've kind of completed their individual water cycle as a group, or if you want to ask this to the class. But the way I'm thinking is, ask them how can water be contaminated. Ask them about the type of contamination. Is it biological? Is it like a bacteria got into it? Is it nitrogen from fertilizer? What is the source of the contamination as well? So the type and source are kind of going to go together. When I say this next part, the stage of the contamination, what stage in the water cycle did it infiltrate? So if it was like acid rain, that starts at precipitation. That's right away at the beginning. Whereas if it's like runoff that gets contaminated from like fertilizer, that's going to be a little bit different. So make sure they make note of that. And then how far can the contamination travel in the cycle? Is it something that's going to get scrubbed out right away, or it only affects one stage, or is it something that's going to become fairly constant? Something to think about for students, because it does make a difference. So ask them that. With that one, again, grab your student questions that they come up with together, and then ask them maybe how they could continue to investigate this, or what they would do to look into it further, because that might give you an idea for a great investigation or an inquiry lab for them to do and put more effort into that lesson. They're going to come up with different things. You're going to come up with different things. That's why it's kind of open to interpretation. I could kind of see this taking 2 days, 1 day just for them to work on their models, another day just for the discussion. I would say at the end of the discussion, do a completion survey, either in person or electronic. And then really make sure you ask these 3 questions. What is a watershed? What is a wetland? And where does most of Iowa's drinking water come from? That's going to help you, again, reshape and focus the next 2 days where you're kind of coming up with your own lesson to provide information to the students. And these do play a role later on as we continue in the unit. And then remaining questions and feedback, I always include that in all of them, just because you want to hear about what students still have questions about and they might not have asked it to the group. And then make sure you go over and review what worked, what didn't work, either every class or every in between periods. Try and fix it up. If you have any suggestions, please leave it in the comments section. Or if you have anything that worked really well, leave that as well. With that, though, like with the other one, for moving forward, you're going to have maybe 1 or 2 days where you come up with a way to present information to the students. Anything that they left out, especially like with groundwater, you got the groundwater basics can really help you supplement that. Find a way to provide that information to students for the things that they don't have. So that's lesson 2. So at this point, once you've completed this one, they should have a little bit of an understanding of glacial features. They should have a little bit of understanding about what the water cycle is and how it works. Now we're going to start going into how do those 2 things work together. So that'll be lesson 3, 4, and onward. So stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.